During the conversion of the 2017 report to top secret and unclassified, key context was not included. Oh my gosh.
I have seen up close and personal the tactics that are used by those who care more for themselves, their ambition, their job, their influence, their political interests, their self-serving interests than they care about the Constitution.
And the FBI and the CIA were both weaponized to, as our director of CIA has said, accelerate this hoax against then candidate and former President Trump.
A whistleblower is getting illegally attacked by Obama people, and Tulsi Gabbard is revealing what is happening. She posted this and shared with us several documents, including this enclosure, which was just approved for release by the DNI at the end of July. And we'll go through it and see what it entails, but she's explaining it's about a whistleblower. They're revealing, and we love our whistleblowers, saying that this whistleblower was threatened by a supervisor to go along with the Obama-directed Russian hoax intelligence assessment, even though they knew it wasn't credible or accurate. Now, yesterday, we released the whistleblower's firsthand account of what happened in the crafting of the January 2017 ICA. Their years-long efforts to expose the egregious manipulation and manufacturing of intelligence carried out at the highest levels of government and the IC, and how they were repeatedly ignored. Thank you to this courageous whistleblower and others who are coming forward now, putting their well-being on the line to defend our democratic republic, to ensure the American people know the truth and hold those responsible accountable. And Tulsi released for us the letter, and here is what it looks like. Enclosure 1, approved for release. Here's the background and executive summary of these events. And this is coming from an intelligence person who was working on the Trump-Russia collusion cases. Writing, all right, from 2015 to 2020, I served as Deputy National Intelligence Officer at the National Intelligence Council. For the first 4 years, I served as cyber and Asian cyber. A second area of my focus was cyber-enabled information operations, and they assigned me to the NIO because I did some other things. Now, I led the production and the intelligence community assessment, ICA, on cyber threats in 2016. This was specially tasked by James Clapper during a secure video conference call conducted with the NIO cyber, someone, myself, and others. On the call, James Clapper stated that then President of the United States, Obama, had urgently requested a comprehensive analysis of election security, and the DNI accepted someone's proposal to deliver the analysis via ICA format. Yeah, we'll put it in the little intelligence briefing for you there, Barry. I completed and delivered the 2016 ICA prior to the November 2016 polls, like before the election, and was commended for these efforts in my annual performance review by this person and the vice chair of the NIC, this person. They thought I did great. But after the November 2016 polls, I participated in production of multiple intelligence products, including presidential daily briefings, right? Trump won, so Obama was still getting briefed, assessing if, how, and why Russia might have interfered with the election. The outgoing Obama administration then tasked a new ICA on the election because the first ones were not to their liking. For the new 2017 ICA, I was directed by this person, who is that, to focus on the Russian attempts to access U.S. election infrastructure, which was Julianne's stupid idea. IC reporting suggested many Russian attributed IP addresses were making connection attempts that the intelligence community could not explain the purpose of. Later, when presenting someone with our findings, someone directed us to abandon any further study of the subject, saying, it's something else. I know what it is. It's something else. Stop looking at it. In light of a later development in open source reporting, I came to have concerns about this Russian attributed cyber activity and the abrupt dismissal of the study effort, right? So this security intelligence person, like, well, it's a problem. No, it's not. Leave it alone. In addition, I noted other nations' efforts to influence the election, but this critical context was omitted from the intelligence report. They just wanted to make it about the Russians so that they could seed, with the help of the Ukrainian oligarchs, a new war against them. During the conversion of the 2017 report to top secret and unclassified, key context was not included. Oh my gosh. I was pressured to alter my views on the key judgments with the expressed intent by this person that my concurrence was sought to enable this person to sway the views of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Underlined. I was pressured by some people to change my opinion. Not even accurate. In 2019, as a member of the classified election influence email distribution list, I got an email related to a FOIA request that included commentary from staff suggesting that the Steele dossier was a factor in the the 2017 report. Because this suggested a possibility that NIC staff, including this person, had misled other NIC staff, including myself, for several years, I reached out to leadership to ask specifically this person about this, right? In other words, this guy says, wait a minute, I helped write a report that you pressured me to say, and then you guys copied it, like this is my final copy, and they're like, okay, we're just gonna format it and just like, we'll print it for you, don't worry about it. Can you just email it to us? Email it to them. They reformat it, take out a bunch of important stuff, shove in the fake Steele dossier, then publish it, throw that in a classified annex. This guy has no idea about any of that stuff. So then he starts getting some other intelligence. He's like, wait a minute, they did what to my report? So I reached out to their leadership to try to figure out what's going on. And the response was dismissive and suggested, well, it is routine that we get material and we don't share it with everyone, okay? And it's not a matter of a particular clearance, okay? This is compartmented information. And you don't need to know. Need to know basis. Considering that I was a part of the influence team, this seemed inexplicable, especially since someone stated it's not a matter of clearance. I've got the clearance. Shortly thereafter, they took me off the email distro without a warning or explanation because the email, it's like a listserv, right? You get all these emails. Oh, Steele dossier comes through. What? It's in there? What? He looks into it. They take him off because they're all a part of the cover up. The FBI is rotten through and through. And unless Kash Patel comes out with guns blazing at that agency, we're going to be stuck with these disgusting people. But shortly thereafter, I was removed. I then contacted the Inspector General. I said, I can't believe this. In parallel, open source information led me to believe events that I had knowledge or records of might be relevant to ongoing federal criminal investigations. Throughout 2020, 2021, and 2022, I urged the Intelligence Inspector General to convey the fact of my concerns and records to the appropriate parties, culminating in an IG representative verbal statement back to me that it would be up to me to initiate contact with the DOJ in my personal capacity. They're like, well, if you want to do something about it, you got to like contact your lawyers. So I did. I contacted a DOJ representative, but I've yet to receive a follow-up engagement that the DOJ representative stated in 2022 would occur. I wonder if that's going to change now. Now, here's more. Statements to me in early January 17 about the 2017 fake report were the following. Someone said this to him. Just shut up, okay? There is reporting that you're not allowed to see, all right? And if you saw it, you would agree with us. He said, well, I concurred with varying confidence with most of the key judgments, but I would need to review any reporting myself if I'm going to consider it. Well, I'm not going to take your word for it. Can I see it? No. Someone said, well, isn't it possible that Putin has something on Trump to like blackmail and coerce him? He's like, well, after some debate, I declined to alter my analysis based on this suggestion. Isn't it just possible? Just say it's possible. It's like, we don't have evidence of it, but it could be true. It has all the hallmarks of being true. To provide context of my response, weeks earlier, someone had back briefed several of us on a meeting someone claimed to have just come from the DNI, following the DNI's return from his first meeting with POTUS-elect Trump, at which the DNI was accompanied by John Brennan and James Comey. Trump meeting with three of the biggest backstabbers in global history. According to someone, the DNI had been surprised by Director Comey's unilateral last-moment inclusion of the Steele dossier in the briefing materials, supposedly inserted by Comey as the group rode together in the government vehicle. Comey pulled it out of his butt and just put this right in here. Hold on a second. Let me get that out of there. And shoved it in there. Someone had characterized the Steele dossier as being viewed by the DNI and blank as well as non-credible sensationalism. And to my knowledge, the material had never been taken seriously by anybody. I thus asked someone if the IC now, what? Do you still think that this is credible? The response was non-committal and evasive, implied incriminating compartmented reporting might exist, but I suspected so-and-so was echoing a public narrative that the IC ostensibly viewed as false as a way for me to justify logical contortions to arrive at the analytic judgment that they desired me to reach. Someone else told this dude, you need to trust me on this. Just trust me. So I further reiterated my ongoing invocation that I abandoned my trade. He reiterated, so this person reiterated, and they're even getting rid of the pronouns, okay? So it's like so-and-so reiterated her or his ongoing invocation that I abandoned my tradecraft standards. That looks like a he had told me on prior occasions that he viewed my analyst culture in tradecraft as pseudo-religion. He did not share and had stated that I needed to demonstrate my ability to outgrow it in order to get promoted. You just have to play the game, okay? Do you want to be a senior executive service or not? I held firm. I explained that the religion of analysts, as it was like a two-letter name, called it, to which I belonged, meant, or an acronym for a position, meant I could not claim to concur with the analysis that I don't believe in. I explained that I would defer to this person as the NIO on the NIO cyber analytic line, but I would not say that I agreed with the analysis. So then this person, visibly frustrated, said, I need you to say you agree with these judgments so that the DIA will go along with them. So he responded and ensued on the DIA supposed trust in me, right? Well, they trust you, and the necessity of me proving my corporate IC officer bona fides by doing what it took to bring the DIA on board as an additional agency signing on to this. You need a team player here. Go get him on here. I declined to do so, citing my adherence to the DoD Analytic objectivity standards. Man, shout out to this whistleblower. Thank you. And remembered aloud to blank how blank they used to give us a little card to wear on our lanyards, reminding us to remain analytically objective. Man, this guy was like, you guys should be better. They used to have this embedded in the culture here. Maybe we should go back to that. I remember this conversation very clearly, as it was a difficult situation and I listened and I chose my responses with care. I was aware that I was defying the NIO's direction to me to misrepresent my views to the DIA based on a conscious decision to adhere to intelligence standards, trade crafts, and ethics. This statement is made to the best of my recollection. And here's some emails. July 19, 2025. So like not old, like very new. So this was just forwarded from somebody to the odni.gov. FYSA, USSF, and Congress copied can provide referenced oversight report via JWIX. And this came CC to odni.gov and spaceforce.military. And the subject is non-DoD source forward intelligence oversight SAFIG statement that our office is not informing congressional committees. It just got forwarded like 2 weeks ago. It's an old email. From spaceforce.mil to civil liberties at dodig.mil about this. From somebody to somebody. Dear sir, I contacted you because part of my concern involves activities by the intelligence community to include DoD officers that may constitute abuse of authorities to violate civil liberties. Now, we're looking about emails, and if you have alternate emails, let me know. Okay, they respond, or actually, here's how it went down. Thank you for your written declaration, copied verbatim below, that you are willfully and intentionally not informing Congress of intelligence oversight issues raised by employees through official channels. Please advise means by which I can convey concerns to you. Looks like these are emails from the whistleblower. Like he's saying, hey, can you help me? No. Here's another one. Secretary Air Force General. In accordance with DODD, this directive, working through my designated intelligence oversight chain, I reported potentially information up the chain of command, potential malfeasance by non-DOD intelligence officers serving the NIC and other parts, and obstruction by staff supporting Attorney General Durham. The DOD reporting was formalized in a memo, and the DOD rules say you got to follow the rules and how to report things. Now, I am therefore requesting that you promptly notify Congressional Defense and Intelligence Committees of and provide them access to my memo and all the attachments to it so we can report this stuff up. Between 2016 and 2022, through firsthand involvement, I became aware of multiple events that may have represented the use or attempted use of national security authorities to influence domestic politics. I believe some of these events may have influenced or been intended to influence congressional or the 2016 election. We got unsolicited contact by a DC law firm. Oh, I wonder who that could be. An anomalous inquiry about intelligence community officers briefing Congress on election hacking. In 2016, I participated in an anomalous contact between the intelligence community and a law firm called Squire Patton Boggs. Thought it was gonna be Perkins Coie. I initially viewed this as an attempt to raise the profile of the cyber expert the law firm represented. In retrospect, I have concern that the engagement may have been an attempt to direct IC focus and analysis in order to shape public views about the election. Here's what happened. In late February 2016, elections coming up in October, the NIO cyber, who was this person at the time, referred me to an NIC counselor who had been contacted by the Washington, D.C. law firm called Squire Patton Boggs. They stated that they had made contact with the NIC director and that they wanted to share concerns. I just want to talk to you about some stuff that's going on as cyber threats to the election. Now, as cyber threats to election are a focus of the team, I directed someone to meet with them. I called and then received an email response from them and the senior policy advisor, who was described by somebody as Senate Minority Leader Harry Reid's appointee to the board of advisors. So high up person. So I explained we could meet blank in blank capacity as a voting expert, but not as a legislative branch representative. I met with them on March 9th at that meeting. No significant new developments were raised, but blank repeatedly inquired if there were any NIO, or in my case, any DNIO, willing to testify to Congress on cyber threats. I asked blank if hearings on the subject were planned, to which blank stated that blank believed there might be hearings scheduled in the days to come. I made clear that contact between DNIO or NIO and the legislative branch would need to go through certain affairs, unsolved risk, got anything about the book. Now, issue 2. Now, regarding this and the elections, which did not, in my view, reflect a focus on current threats, they later served as an expert and more. Now, issue number 2. There was also pressure to misrepresent analytic judgments about the 2016 election. This person says, I expressed tradecraft concerns and analytic disagreement with this person over a key judgment in the top secret and unclassified versions of the intelligence report. Namely, I objected to overall framing of Russian activities as efforts to influence means change the outcome, outcome of the election. That's not what that was. It was actually to discredit the outcome of the election, which is different. Like, your elections are illegitimate either way it goes. It's not about influencing it one way or another. And also judged that the treatment of overt media activities was omitting important context. And so in response, someone actively pressured him to change his judgments and stated clearly and directly to me they sought my concurrence as a means to persuade the DIA to get on board. Now, in the run-up to this, I participated in a bunch of issues, describing the security of the election and crafting content. Several aspects of the drafting of this new report were unusual. First, other than blank, the quote team crafting this report did not engage with me despite my role as the lead coordinated assessor of the topic. Instead, they directed me to focus on a specific issue. They said, well, you're going to go over there. It's just a sub issue. And that would be treated as a module and then incorporated. So everybody would be working on different components. They mash it all together. Now, that analysis was never fully incorporated, and I later came to view some of the reporting it relied on as a possible indication of criminal activity by U.S. people under investigation. I also performed analysis of broader information environment described in the other subtext to identify conduct by media based within U.S. allies, but I was discouraged from analyzing this activity any further. Said, we're not going to talk about the media. When the ICA was completed, it was protected within the channels, and I was never shown it in full. Then someone called a fellow someone else and I into the office to help craft the unclassified version and the classified version. We'll just hash it out. Come on in here. Do you agree with this? Pull it up on the screen. I concurred with the ICA judgment that Moscow sought to undermine public faith. I'd been on record with this view. And it was also likely that Moscow sought how to influence how Americans viewed the process and results. But I did not think that at that time that the goals, as the opening sentence says, was to influence the election. There was no influence there at all. Though my role is in leading production here, the prior to, like this guy did the 2016, I also knew as recently as September, other elements of the IC had pushed back during analytic coordination on warnings of Russian intent to influence the election. Someone said one judgment could be misleading. Yet by January, because Hillary lost, at least one of the elements had pushed back that the FBI had seemingly altered its position. Yes, that's right, they did. And embraced the judgment of Russians influencing the election. They had no new data other than the unexpected result of the election and public speculation that there was a hack of the vote. And the intelligence community says we simply say it did not happen. Now, as for the judgment of a decisive Russian preference for Trump, I could not concur with that in good conscience based on information that was publicly available or available to me even not publicly. My professional analytic judgment did not allow me to do that. I did not rule the possibility out. I was willing to be convinced, but I was not offered access to any other dispositive reporting. I even asked to review it. They said no. Someone else made arguments in which they pressured me to accept the judgment of a decisive Russian preference for Trump and stated that he sought my concurrence because we got to persuade other people to do it. But they also directed me to conduct analysis of cyber activity for the fake new report. I had been abruptly directed to abandon further investigation, and I was told by this person that reported activity was, quote, something else. So stop looking at that, at something else. Based on open source information developed from the Durham investigation, I came to view some of the reported activity as activities by U.S. people under federal investigation. So I was also tasked by someone to partner with a Homeland analyst, also assigned to the cyber threat unit. I was told the analysis would be used as a module. The reporting said that Russian cyber actors were seeking in some cases to gain access to election cyber infrastructure. Some of this reporting was driven by a detection of an internet protocol with addresses that fell within the range of IP addresses used by Russian actors. Now, as the IC provided the U.S. state-level governments more information on these suspicious IP ranges, more connection attempts kept coming in. While there was at least one case of exfiltration of personal information, it was only a brief interaction, and in no case in 2016 did we judge any observed malign or unexpected cyber activity that was capable of altering any U.S. votes. But the enigmatic cyber activity raised concern still. Presuming the activity was correctly attributed to Russians, either Moscow was gaining access we couldn't detect or was making contact for its own sake. But during December, we continued to press for information about undetected compromises or exploitation. The FBI generated products, and some of those were alluded to. However, before the report was finalized, someone directed me to abandon analyzing this, stating reports of Russian intelligence or cyber activity were something else. And given its basis in reporting, I later began to consider it possible that some of the reporting might reflect the DNS record manipulation by other people. Another sub-issue, failure to provide diverse perspectives to formulate a holistic report. Analysis of countries other than Russia that I judged to be seeking to influence elections, both for and against Hillary and against then candidate Trump, for Hillary Hillary and against Hillary, but against Trump. And tradecraft recommendations to address this issue were disregarded. They didn't care. In an incomplete analysis, other countries may have been more liable than Russia ever was, and they just left that out of the report because they just needed a war with Russia. They wanted one. They've wanted one for decades. And what better way to do it? You take out Trump and Russia at the same time, two birds, one coup. As various intelligence products on Russian interference were written, a body of open English language Russian media articles denigrating Clinton were assembled. I was told this would be used in the unclassified version, saying that the Russians have the intent to do it because a bunch of journalists hate Hillary. I did not contest the fact that, yeah, they don't like her, but they denigrate everybody, not just Hillary. My judgment was that multiple nations were seeking to shape the views. We must note the presence of everybody or not. Clinton fell within the de facto international norms. There's nothing unusual about any of this. It's standard denigration. So I expressed substantial concerns about all this in the report. Now, message from the council staff that the Steele dossier was a factor in the intelligence community was also a problem. So here's that listserv story. On September 18th, as a member of the classified election influence email distro, I got an email from this person, a program manager, directing a search in response to a FOIA request and stating that Shelby, presumably this person, formerly NIM for Russia Europe, had stated the dossier was a factor in the ICA on the election interference, and it was added as an annex. This dude saw that come across the listserv, flipped out. What? The assertion that the Steele dossier had been used in the ICA was in contradiction to what this person had previously told me, and at no time during the prior 3 years did anybody ever suggest that the Steele was credible. I had been led to believe that the prior DNI clapper viewed the Steele dossier as untrustworthy, and I had believed it played no role in the ICA, but it did. Regarding the assertion that an assessment of the document was added as an annex, okay, so in other words, the document was not added as an annex, but it was an assessment. I neither knew the Steele dossier nor any assessment of it had been present as an annex in any versions that I had seen. I thought this meant either the premise of the email was incorrect or that the Steele dossier related material was held in CAP channels, which seemed like a potential inappropriate use of classification for something so widely available in open source. Why would the Steele dossier be hidden and classified if everybody already had it and knew it was fake? Which seemed like a potential inappropriate use. If the material had actually been a factor or even just attached to a compartmented review, it seemed that blank and others were actively misleading me and others for several years. And they all dismissed our concerns. All the leadership dismissed my concerns about deliberate deception of intelligence officers by this dude and by possible attempts to bias analysis. Following the receipt of the FOIA email, I reached out to this person, the vice chair, noting I had potentially responsive documents to this request and I had been present during the period in question, and I expressed my concern explicitly about the Steele dossier. But my boss responded writing, well, obviously, this all predates me. I just got here. It is routine that we get material. We don't share with everybody. Sometimes you get stuff, sometimes it's not a matter of particular clearance, so just chill out. He said, what? I later spoke briefly with him in person. I walked down to his office, both in email and in person. He was dismissive. He displayed no alarm that some agent might have been intentionally misled by a supervisor or that there are attempts to undermine tradecraft. Don't you want to get to the bottom of that? Within days, I was taken off the email distro without notice or explanation. I never saw a response to that. A subsequent performance appraisal by someone so-and-so misrepresented what happened. And from open source reporting, I judged that other violations of analytic integrity almost certainly occurred, that violations of law might have occurred, and that I likely had information relevant to ongoing criminal investigations. And issue 5, my engagement with the Inspector General, which began in 2019 and continued through 2022, culminated in his assertion to me that he lacks any mechanism or process to convey whistleblower information of potential relevance to ongoing criminal investigations. I can't do anything about that, man. What do you want me to do? Nothing. He says, I reached out to their team. I said, guys, there's crimes going on. I believe that the information might be of relevance to criminal investigations by John Durham, but John Durham doesn't give a crap and might have a bearing on investigations on FISA. I was directed to contact someone as a potential whistleblower, which I did on 29 October 2019. For several reasons, I persisted in seeking a meeting with the representatives, making clear that I might be relevant to ongoing criminal investigations, and my belief that the DNI should be made aware of these things. An initial intake meeting was scheduled, but COVID hit. Oh, they canceled for COVID. In July, I met staff in person. At the meeting, they took extensive notes. They made audio recordings. I expressed my view that information I had might be relevant to John Durham's case. In October, after no substantive follow-up, I learned that a new ICIG, Thomas Moynham, had been appointed. He replied stating, oh, I don't even know who you are. Let me follow up with my team. On March 11th, I was contacted by someone else, the lawyer, who asked me probably to come back to headquarters. At that meeting, the staff was present, included a bunch of other people. Another extensive interview was conducted. conducted, during which I raised additional concerns that had developed since the initial intake, or that in retrospect I realized might be potentially significant. These included, but not limited to, statements to me by this person in 16 and 17 directing me to conceal from National Security Council officials the alleged blank interception of electronic communications from members of the incoming presidential administration. Wow. Then at the 2022 meeting, the staff stated to me for the first time that they lacked a mechanism for me to report criminal activity. No procedure existed. We can't help you. The staff made clear that they could not ask me to do so. They were not asking me to do so, but if you want to go become a whistleblower, then you can. So I sought to contact Durham. I got information, Durham. You can prosecute these people. And as advised, as my only option, and I did reach a person who claimed to work with John Durham's office. After an initial phone discussion and email, there has been no follow-up or other further engagement. This dude wrote the 2016 report that was right, and then rewrote the 2017 report, a small portion of it. John Durham didn't even take his friggin' phone calls. On March 28th, I signed and sent a letter to John Durham. He's like, ran the shredder. Whistleblower. After days went by without any indication that my letter had been received, and given the potentially criminal nature of some of the events which concerned me and the occurrence of some of these events in Virginia, I contacted the office of the Attorney General in Virginia via priority mail. They had gotten my letter. They said, well, okay, fine. The Attorney General will convey it over to Durham then. So then in April, I received a phone call from someone ostensibly supporting Durham. We spoke by phone to the extent possible at an unclassified level. Then on May 3rd, via a classified network, I sent blank a series of 10 emails describing the situation and information I had, as well as additional concerns. The following day, I sent more emails. Someone replied to the effect that the special counsel was busy with trials. Huh, what trials? Sussmans? You lost? But they would get back to me. Following the conclusion of that trial, which he lost, no contact from blank or anyone in the DOJ was forthcoming at all. I was never asked to interview or test any, because it was over. Because Durham, mop-up boy Durham, mopped it up. On September 29th, I emailed the blank to note of my concern of the ODNI classified email systems, and the networks were somehow losing all of his emails, and email messages got lost in the hope of some order of preservation. Since September 2022, I've received no communication from this or any person from Durham. At present, I do not know if Durham has ever been made aware of my concerns or my records at all. All of it just kept off the books. Yeah, and this was the Michael Sussman trial. Here are his end notes. And that came down from another whistleblower. Tulsi Gabbard is just dropping juicy nugget after juicy nugget. And we hope this continues, man. Nothing would be more beautiful than a slow drip, death by 1,000 cuts, just information, just stack pages, baby. And then we get indictments, and they can just squirrel around in fear, knowing what they did is coming out, thanks to amazing whistleblowers like that person. So Tulsi was out with Glenn Beck, and here is what part of this conversation sounded like.
I have seen up close and personal the tactics that are used by those who care more for themselves, their ambition, their job, their influence, their political interests, their self-serving interests, than they care about the Constitution. That every single one of these law enforcement and intelligence community professionals swear an oath, just like I have, both in uniform in the military and as a member of Congress and as Director of National Intelligence, to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. This is why what we are doing matters so much. So yes, I have my own frustrations, trust me, but my resolve is focused and is rooted in my love for our country and my belief in the values and principles that our country was founded upon, and therefore the responsibility that I carry to do something about that which we are revealing, that which I am seeing and experiencing firsthand. It is a heavy responsibility, but it's also an awesome one, and I spend every day doing my best to fulfill it.
All right, so Tulsi Gabbard, lots of platitudes there, but nice to hear from her. Now, we also got Caroline Leavitt was out today, and she was dropping the nuggets on the Hillary scam, too.
Well, I think a major organization of the national security apparatus, at least here at the White House within the National Security Council, has indeed taken place, and the president entrusts his current CIA director, John Ratcliffe, and our ODNI director, Tulsi Gabbard, to make the necessary changes to ensure classified intelligence, especially that could hurt the national security of our country, does not make its way into the hands of irresponsible actors who want to politicize that intelligence for their own end. Since you brought up the declassification report that was put out by Senator Grassley today, I'm glad you brought it up, because this should be a story every outlet in this room should be covering. This is further evidence that Hillary Clinton approved the Russia hoax against President Trump. Her campaign financed it. Again, she approved it. And the FBI and the CIA were both weaponized to, as our director of CIA has said, accelerate this hoax against then candidate and former President Trump. To answer the heart of your question, the president wants to see justice served, and he trusts the Attorney General and the Department of Justice to implement that justice and hold these people accountable.
We hope that is coming soon.